Welcome everybody to Why Become a Peer Sports Specialist, which is a great opportunity to be had. I'm Sherry Rushman. Vicki, did you want to go ahead and introduce the training and me?
Yes. So becoming a peer, being a peer sports specialist, and our interactions, Sherry and I, with peers over the years has, folks have really talked about how they so much enjoy being a peer. I'm Vicki Suter. I'm the Director of Rights and Advocacy. I'm also the peer liaison for peer support specialists to our agencies, as well as to the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. Sherry is also a rights liaison with me. We're excited. We have a work group here at OCHN that talks about peer services and how we strengthen that and keep it moving forward. And one of the ideas that this work group had was to provide a brief webinar about what it means to be a peer and how you can become a peer, because typically our agencies do have vacancies for peer support specialists. So Sherry Rushman is our presenter today. Sherry is a longtime certified peer support specialist. She was one of the first in the state to become a peer. So she has lots of experience regarding that. She is a trainer here at OCHN for, wow, how many years, Sherry?
Since 2003, almost 30.
Yep. So she's doing
Or
a
is
great,
it 20?
almost 20 years.
20.
So yes, she's great. And so Sherry is going to be leading our training today. We'll also hear from another peer later in the program about what it means to be a peer for him. So Sherry, I'm going to let you take it over.
All right. So what we're covering today is what a peer sports specialist does, and why I like being a peer sports specialist. We're going to have a guest speaker today to talk about why they like being a peer sports specialist. We're going to talk about how to become a good candidate for peer sports specialist positions. We're going to talk about recovery education, a lot of trainings that I do and trainings that you might find that would support your desire to becoming a peer sports specialist. We're also going to talk about things that you could include in your resume as you apply to become a peer sports specialist before you're actually certified. I'm going to give a little information from my story of how I prepared to be a peer sports specialist and how I did on the job and how I found it so beneficial. We're also going to talk about where to apply for peer support specialist positions and then answer any questions that you may have that comes up during this. Vicki will be checking for hands, electronic hands, if you know how to turn on electronic hand or raise your hand, just your physical hand, and she'll be calling on you if you have a question or a comment. So what a peer support specialist does, the big thing that they use is their lived experience with mental illness to help others. It's not going to school and getting a degree, but their lived experience with recovery from mental illness and their experience with benefits or anything that they needed to navigate the public mental health system will be experience that will be used on the job as a peer sports specialist. You will sometimes through sharing your story or by being a role model, you will be providing information and support for an individual's recovery. You will be speaking, you will be working with them one-on-one, a lot of times supporting their goals in their IPOS done in a person-centered planning process. You'll role model recovery and ongoing coping skills. You'll share those things that you did to help you cope. And then also some of you have a peer sports specialist and you'll be able to share and role model how they role model to you being a peer in your life. So as I mentioned before, you will be sharing your recovery story, but what we mean by appropriate is that you don't just meet somebody and tell them your whole life story, even your whole recovery story. What you do to be appropriate when you're sharing your story is when somebody brings up something or a question or a concern, maybe part of your recovery story would give them hope on that specific issue. So you're probably never totally sharing your whole recovery story, and you're being careful that you don't bring up trauma that could stir up trauma for yourself and for the person you're sharing. So you try to keep that on the down low and keep it pretty positive on how you came to change things in your life and recover from losses you might have experienced from having a mental illness and being diagnosed. There are many losses that can come with that, and you'll be sharing in your recovery story how you overcame those losses and became a contributing member of society and of the mental health system. One thing we find really easy for peer support specialists is to gain the trust of the person they're working with. It doesn't, I mean, sometimes people can, if they have a tremendous trauma history, can have a hard time trusting you. But with the spectrum of professionals, the psychiatrist, the therapist, the social worker, usually the person coming in for services is going to trust somebody that's lived it, experienced it, a lot easier than they're going to trust the people with just book knowledge. So we're always working on gaining trust. We make sure that if we promise to do something, we do it. We have follow through, that we're on time for our appointments, and we keep boundaries. So as I mentioned before, sharing your story happens a lot, and with that provides hope to individuals. It's one of the main avenues we have to providing hope to the people that we're working with. Vicki, do you have anything else to share at this point?
Nope, I think we can go to the next slide.
All right. So sometimes people that you're close to, that you're working with, trust you so much, and maybe they don't trust their case manager as much, or their psychiatrist or therapist, and they are given the opportunity through treatment planning with the person-centered planning process to have anybody at their meeting that they would like to. And you can be invited to a meeting, but you definitely are included in the plan one way or another, because whatever goal you'll be working on with this person you're working with will be in the treatment plan, the individual plan of service, and it'll be done in a person-centered planning process way. And so you might be invited to attend. You might role play and help people get ready for their individual plan of service in a person-centered planning way. You may be the person telling them their rights in the person-centered planning process. This is a very important process you'll want to know a lot about. A lot of you, if you are receiving services in the public health system, which is one of the qualifications to becoming a peer support specialist, is receiving services in the public mental health system. And so you'll be able to use that experience of you going through your own treatment planning and person-centered planning process to help others in the future once you get a job as a peer support specialist. Often, there is training after somebody is certified as a peer support specialist. You go and get the job first, work on job training, and then your supervisor will send you to certification training. And a lot of times there's ongoing education after you're certified, and they offer a lot of trainings that you can get trained in to facilitate peer groups. It could be peer trainings, it could be peer groups like support groups, or whatever your agency likes their peer support specialists to do as far as running groups. There's all kinds of different groups I've heard about at the different providers that work for us. And I ran a caring sharing group at CNS Healthcare when I was a peer support specialist from 1996 to 2003. And there's also RAP, which stands for Wellness Recovery Action Planning, and a lot of peers become certified in that to run RAP groups. It's just a program that gives people lots of options to write little plans to make one big plan to help them in the recovery process. So you'll be facilitating peer groups, either things you learn from the state or things your agency promotes. You also might be called upon with specific people you're working with to help them find employment. You're going to use this experience of you finding a peer support specialist job to navigate how to help others find employment. And you may assist with housing. Sometimes people need housing when they come on your caseload. And it's good to have some kind of binder with resources in it so that you can share resources maybe that you used when you were, or you're using now as you're navigating the public mental health system. You may be asked to help in crisis situations, or you may end up working at Common Ground where they help people in crisis situations constantly, and that's what they totally do. Some people end up working for Common Ground. Some other people end up having a caseload at the agency that they're peer support specialists for. And sometimes we're called upon to intervene in a crisis situation because the person trusts us and we know what it's like to be in crisis. And so therefore we're the best person sometimes to help in those situations. So we mentioned many things that peer support specialists do, but by no means have I touched on all the things that peer support specialists do. And sometimes different agencies have different groups that peers are on a whole team with, and they're the peer support specialists for that team. And so there's a lot of different ways that what you're going to be doing is decided. But when you have that interview for the peer support specialist job, it's a good time in your resume to write the kind of things that you can do to support the people you're going to be working with, so that they work off of your strengths to decide what exactly you're going to do. Some things are going to be what everybody does, but some things are going to be specific to you. Now, I became a person-centered planning facilitator, certified. And so when I worked at CNS Healthcare, they let me do treatment plans in a person-centered planning process. So depending on your skills and your abilities, they may have you do certain personal things that you can do that maybe the other peers won't be doing. But there's a general peer support specialist job description that you will have that every other peer has. So, Jordan, are you here? Is this Jordan's time, Vicki?
Yeah, so we're going to hear from an individual who has been a peer also for a very, very long time and has done a number of things. And he's going to share with you the things that he's done as a peer, as well as why he likes being a peer. So I'm going to welcome Jordan Schulman. And Jordan, if you could just give us some background about your experiences, that would be great. You're muted.
Sorry about that. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I will start by saying that I still live with a mental illness, and I was receiving services from the public mental health system. And I became a peer support specialist for CNS Healthcare, and I worked there for over 8.5 years, and I loved it. Right now, I am working for OCHN as a customer service specialist, but that doesn't mean that I still use my peer skills that I learned, especially when people call in that are individuals receiving services themselves. So I wrote just about 3 different bullet points that I came up with on why I loved being here. And so the first one is that I loved giving people hope, and I loved role modeling that their diagnosis doesn't define who they are, right? That there's light at the end of the tunnel, and they can still accomplish their goals and leading a purposeful and meaningful life, whatever that looks like to them, even while living with a mental illness, right? Empathy is extremely important to me, which is something I never got from my own family. So I was able to relate to a lot of people, and I knew what it was like to be misunderstood. I still know what it's like. And I enjoy making people feel like that they're not alone in their struggle and in their journey. I was also very happy with being a peer because not only am I allowed, but I'm also encouraged to share my recovery story and to be vulnerable with them and share that I still struggle at times. And not a lot of jobs in the industry encourage you to share that kind of story. Encourage that, hey, I do have a mental illness. I do struggle at times, but that's not going to prevent me from reaching my goals. The job helped me in my recovery. That's one of the main things that I like, because I needed to feel like I wasn't alone too. So when I helped them, I also helped myself. So it was a very fulfilling career to me. I also, as Sherry pointed out, I loved co-facilitating peer groups and craving knowledge and learning about new ways and how to think differently, and just learning new things and taking trainings. I love that. Being around other peers, peer support specialists that are in the same career as I was, very rewarding. Because not only did I feel like I wasn't alone in my recovery, I didn't feel like I was alone with all the peers that do this in all the other counties in Michigan. It made me feel very special to know that only peers can lead these type of groups, these peer-run groups. And I took it seriously because my first step in my recovery was going to a peer support group. And they are different than therapy groups that are run by a therapist. I enjoy making it fun, educational, being able to display my unique personality to a group of my own peers, and really letting them know that I'm no better or worse than them, and that everyone's experiences are equally important. So it's a real different role than being a therapist. I like to say, always when I meet somebody and they don't know what a peer is, I always use this quote that I came up with, and I say, you know what? you get a lot of support in getting services from CNS. Your therapist may have a mental illness. Your case manager may have a mental illness. Your psychiatrist may have a mental illness, but they don't have to share about that. It's my job to share that I do, and that it's okay. The third thing that I also really liked about being a peer support specialist is I liked being on a team, right? You're actually on a team with case managers and therapists that we all work together, and I can actually share with them my own personal perspective of what it's like to live with the mental illness. And it helped to create an environment at a job, at an agency that really focused on promoting recovery instead of labeling and treating someone as their diagnosis instead of a whole person. And I'll tell you what, a lot of the case managers that I work with thank me, appreciate me. They value what I bring to people's recoveries, and they say that they learned a lot. They learn a lot from peers, and that was very rewarding. And I also like battling stigma and discrimination by being a positive role model in the community. So those are really three major things that I really like.
That was awesome, Jordy. Thanks so much for sharing with us. Does anybody have any comments or questions for Jordan?
Yeah.
You could unmute, you could put it in the chat. You could use the raise your hand feature. Anybody got any comments or questions for Jordan? All right, excellent job, Jordan. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Sherry, it's yours.
I'm sorry, I put myself on mute because I was coughing, but I'm having trouble moving the PowerPoint. Let me just try something here really quick. Oh, no.
Are you able to get it to move?
Nope.
All right, do you want to unshare and I'll share?
Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay, technology.
It's funny when I've been alone and I needed it to work, it worked. Stop sharing.
Okay.
Have I stopped sharing?
Yes, you have. A
Okay.
minute and I will.
It's good to see all the people on the training. Welcome, everybody. When I was doing the PowerPoint, I couldn't see you, but now I can see you. And I'm glad you're all here today. All right, so.
Give me one second, Sherry.
That's right, you've got to get it.
Okay, there you go.
All right, so what makes you a good candidate for the position of a peer support specialist? Well, we talked about one thing was your recovery experience, your experience with an illness story that became a recovery story. That makes you a really great candidate for a peer support specialist position, and also having gotten services from the public mental health system. That you have a level of recovery to work at least part-time or full-time. Some places have part-time positions, some have both part-time and full-time, and some may just have full-time. Every agency is different. The only thing I can encourage you to do is, it's a good idea to get your job as a peer support specialist at a place where you're not receiving services. Sometimes they allow it. Sometimes they allow you to work where you're receiving services, but then they have to put away your file and it's a little bit harder to work for the place you're receiving services. So you want to be able to have enough recovery to work at another place other than where you're receiving services. You're going to need transportation. Sometimes the agencies have work vehicles, but sometimes they don't have enough of them to go around. So a lot of times you may need to use your vehicle to transport somebody or go somewhere you need to go. Also, you need this transportation just to get to and from work. This is what separates you from getting services. You might have been able to get a ride somehow, but when you are a working peer support specialist, you have to have your own transportation to get to work. So that's something that some people work on. Sometimes people, if they just can't get transportation, can't get a car, sometimes they'll find that they can take the bus to certain places. I don't know about providers, but sometimes to drop-ins and clubhouses. Clubhouses is a place where they have a work order day. Some people get a ride to the bus stop and work at clubhouses. Some people work at drop-ins and get a ride on the bus to a drop-in, maybe a cook or something. They're not necessarily peer sport specialists though at drop-ins and clubhouses, but sometimes that's a way to get around the transportation issue. If you can't have your own vehicle, you might be able to find a job on a bus route. Now, about our recovery education sessions, there is a lot of trainings that I do that I've been doing since 2003, but the people coming to those trainings changes a lot. So I've updated the trainings as years have gone by and added different things. And one recovery education that I do is the Living Hope series, and we'll go over specifically some of the trainings I cover there. And we also offer Moving Forward. And when I get to that slide, I'll tell you more about that. And there may be, and I've talked to a lot of you that have found trainings to go to support this work as well. Some of you have gone to college courses, or some of you have just found trainings online to go to. So Moving Forward is our optional, not mandatory, but optional pre-employment course. So it's a course where you're going to learn, you'll hear what you heard today, but you'll even hear in greater detail what a peer support specialist does. You'll also get some skills that peer support specialists will use on the job and moving forward. It's, I wrote this wrong. It's 17 and a half hours, not 17, but it's 3.5 hours a day for 5 days in a row of a week. So like maybe every Friday from 9 to 12:30. We have one coming up here. It's going to be this year in 2022, October 7th, October 14th, October 21st, October 28th, and November 4th. It's going to be virtual, so you'll have to register online. Some of you might have heard that it was going to be in person, but we changed it to virtual because of COVID. And some people are still getting COVID out there. So my co-trainer, Adam Furman, and I decided we both just are getting over COVID. So we decided to make it virtual. And since you're here today virtually, it won't be any harder than signing up today to be able to come to Moving Forward. We will send you out a link after you register online for the course. when you sign up for the first day of the course, October 7th, it signs you up for all 5 dates. And you're required to come to all the hours of training to get a certificate. And the certificate is really good. When I applied for my training position at OCHN, I had a folder, a binder, or a folder, I guess, that I gave to everybody in the interviewing team of things like referral letters, all my certificates from trainings, anything I wanted in this folder to show that I would be a good candidate for a job, I had in there. And so I encourage people to do that. Sometimes you can get a binder and put them in plastic in the binder. We also have Speechcraft, which is 8 sessions, 2-hour sessions, the same day of the week, 1 day a week for 8 times. And the last time, the 8th time, is graduation, and you can invite friends and family to come and see you speak. This is a beginner's program, but sometimes people with more experience with speaking come to it and they just add to it. It's a diverse audience, so we have people with disabilities come to learn speech, be part of Speechcraft, and we have professionals or people from our provider network or OCHN come and take Speechcraft together. And it's a real fun program. And I encourage it for people wanting to be a peer sports specialist, because right off the bat, it's going to help you with your interview, for instance. It's going to help you be more confident and just do a lot better job in the interview after having gone through Speechcraft. You definitely boost your confidence in Speechcraft. You can be nervous on day 1, but by day 8, you can be a lot more confident about speaking for an interview or in front of a group. And also, if you're going to be doing peer education on the job, it's good to have Speechcraft as part of the trainings that you have taken and show it certificate for that. So this is just a great class, and the class gets real close to each other because we share a speech every week, a 3 to 5 minute speech on whatever we'd like to talk about, and we really get to know each other and learn a lot from each other. Next. So what I mentioned before is the Living Hope series. This is just a series of trainings that I personally teach alone. And we're going to have 2 of the same thing in 2022, which is Hope and Rap for the holidays. That's going to be November 15th and December 14th, 9 to 11 a.m. And then we don't have any of my other trainings that are listed here: Catching Hope, Hope Givers, Hope Receivers, and Hope Stealers, Worry Less with Rap, Dare to Dream, Person-Centered Planning, Defeat Loneliness with Rap, Power of Positive Thinking, and Be Your Own Advocate. These are 7 trainings that I do regularly, and we're going to set them up for 2023. My boss would like to set up 1 a month. So these are all really good trainings to go to help you be ready to be a peer sports specialist. Or even if you start your job as a peer sports specialist, they're good trainings to go to help you be a good resource on these topics to the people you're working with. Also, it builds you up. So we'd like to open it up to the group, the audience group today. Do you have any ideas of what you could do to prepare to being a peer sports specialist. I'm going to go over that a little bit in a few minutes, what I did. But do you have any ideas of what you could do? Is that what you meant, Vicki, to prepare, or was that, what did you exactly mean?
Yeah, so you just shared several ideas of what people could do to help become a good candidate to be a peer. So what other ideas do our audience have, and or the peers that are on our training today? What other ideas do you have? What other things? So Sherry talked about Speechcraft, the Moving Forward, which is sort of a mini training about being a peer. All of her Living Hope series, which just helps people with their recovery, confidence, and being part of a group. So what other ideas? What other things can you do to prepare to be a good peer candidate? Any ideas? I know.
Somebody's talking, but he's muted.
Oh,
Okay.
stay spiritually balanced.
I'm sorry, say
Pardon
that
me?
again.
This is Emmanuel. I said staying spiritually balanced.
Oh, staying spiritually balanced. Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
for sure.
that's something
That's what's helping. That's what's helping me. I'm going
okay.
back to the roots. I'm going back to the roots of my childhood, where education and religion was a big thing. So that's why I'm at.
So that's a
That's
good
what's helping
point.
me.
So basically making sure you continue to work on your recovery.
For sure.
Yep, good. Anybody else? Jordan or Kelly that are joined us today, you have any ideas?
I'll share. I think that it's great to consider your achievements and think about the goals that you've reached, that you set, that you've reached. And, you know, that for me, I felt like I needed to, because I had a dream of becoming a teacher, and I didn't feel like I could be a peer support until I achieved that dream. And I ended up having a 10-year teaching career, but I was able to show myself that I could do that. So I guess I would say achieving goals and then remembering and considering them, that's a good way to prepare to be a peer support.
Thanks, Kelly. Anybody else?
I have 4 things.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Jordy.
One, let me put my hand down. Oops. Okay. So whenever anybody brings up how did they become a peer, or what they can do, I do tell them the first step is, if you do not have a driver's license, please take those steps. What steps can you take to get a driver's license, get reliable transportation? But that's the first step if somebody doesn't have that. In my experience, I took the Moving Forward seminar before I knew what a peer was, before I applied for a peer, and it was actually with Sherry, and it was in like 2013, and that was extremely helpful. Extremely helpful. I completely recommend everyone who wants to become a peer to take that seminar. It's not an official certification or training, but it got me a lot of information and a lot of perspective, and it allowed me to practice my skills of especially like listening. So I'd highly recommend that. The third thing is that I took all the free mental health trainings I could, and OCHN offers a lot of them, including Speechcraft and Worry Less with RAP, and sometimes they even have a training on RAP, which you then bring to you take it as an individual, and then you learn how to facilitate it when you become a peer so that you can run peer groups. And the third thing is, I went to so you have all those free trainings. OCHN offers so many trainings. And like Sherry was saying, that is great to put on your resume when you actually do apply. Look at all these trainings I took, and look at all these certificates I got. And the third thing was to participate in the peer groups that are offered at your agency. Be a member. That's helped a lot of people in my groups to become a peer, learn about becoming a peer, learn what I do. I share my story. I share what it's like. I share how I became. And it also helps in your recovery. All these peer groups that you participate in and attend, they help you in your recovery to stay healthy, spiritually healthy, and to stay to further your growth in your recovery, which what we said is very important. Before you become a peer, you have to prove that you are far enough along in your recovery that you can help someone else. You can still struggle, but you need to, show that you are in recovery and it's going well for you. And the fourth thing is, in my experience, I worked with the supported employment department at where I was receiving services. Sometimes it's now it's called individual placements and support. I did work with an employment specialist one-on-one who helped me apply when I was depressed and when I didn't want to apply and when I didn't know how to fill out an application, when I didn't know what I wanted to do for a living, and also interview skills I learned from working one-on-one with an employment specialist. So those are four things that I think are very powerful that I did, and those are things that you can do because, like Vicki said, there are a lot of positions available for peers right now. So if you're interested in doing that, hey, go for it, right?
Thank
And
you,
then
Jordy.
Matthew, did you have something you wanted to share?
Yes, I heard that you can volunteer at the Common Ground.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that myself, but if you heard that's true, then it probably is true that you can volunteer there.
Yeah, I believe they
Um,
do have a volunteer program and I think they provide like 40 hours of training for that. I don't know, it's a pretty extensive training. You're answering the phones for them. Yeah, but
The
that's
only
So,
thing
pretty,
to,
he brings up,
these workers, they worked on the unit, the CRU, and like assisted patients with like clothing so they could
Okay.
change and
nice,
just a general introduction.
nice. Well, you bring up a good point, volunteering. That's another good way to get some experience that you can put on your resume.
yes, and the only thing to keep in mind is that a couple of places that we put on when we are in moving forward, we give you a list. Well, we're gonna go over it today too. A list of where you can get a job. Some places do not get you certified as a peer sports specialist. And I think Common Ground is one of them. They call it a different name, but they don't help you get certified with the state of Michigan to become a peer sports specialist, I don't think. And I think Community Housing Network is the same thing. They're great jobs though. And
Yeah,
if you don't mind not being a peer sports specialist, that's fine.
Yeah. Well, I think you're still hired as a peer, but the jobs that those individuals do at those agencies do not require state certification. So you're still working as a peer. Those jobs just don't require the certification by the state. Jobs like Sherry had and Jordan had required certification.
Yeah, thank you.
Mhm.
Now we also have Eric. Eric, did you want to share? And Matthew, you can put your hand down. You just re-hit the hand. Eric, are you there? Or did you already share? All right, maybe he already shared. So what to include in your resume? This is where you need to be very creative, and a lot of things that you do in your life would look good on a resume. You can have your work experience, any volunteer work. I had worked as at Department of Social Services. I put in data into the computer, and I also helped a blind social worker with his mail and his paperwork and seeing his clients. And that was really good volunteer experience for becoming a peer support specialist. I also had never worked full-time. And so I took that into consideration. I wanted a full-time job as a peer. So I worked for a woman who had, she was pregnant and she had to stay in bed her last trimester. So I cooked the meals, watched her 3 kids, and worked a 40-hour week for 3 months. And that got me ready to help me know that I could do something for 40 hours a week at least. We also at OCHN have committees and work groups. And moving forward, we kind of take a list of people, but you can let us know beforehand if you want to work on a committee. There's not always an opening on a committee, but we take your information and we'd like to know where you're from, what agency you're receiving services, so that we know if there's an opening for that provider on a committee, we can put you on. So just let me know if
Gary,
you
can I-
want. Yeah,
can
go
I-
ahead.
Can I share
Vicki.
something on this? So as
Yeah.
part of your resume, include any kind of work groups or committees you're on, whether it's at OCHN or not. You might have participated on a CAC or something at your own agency, or even if you're on a committee or work group at your church or some kind of volunteer organization. All those things show that you've been a part of something, part of a group and working on things. So not only OCHN, but any kind of work group that you've been on, any type of organization would be helpful to put on a resume. Thanks, Sherry.
Thank you, Vicki, because I kind of went another way with this, forgetting that I was talking about things to include in your resume. So thank you for clarifying that. Other things to put on your resume is any experience with obtaining benefits, navigating the public mental health system in any way, and any relevant workshops you have attended and have certificate of attendance available. So these are all things you can include in your resume. And there are a lot of things that you can say on your resume for a peer support specialist that indicate that you're in recovery, without necessarily saying you're in recovery. You can list things that you're participating in your life and things that you have accomplished, achievements you have accomplished. So if you've gotten any awards or anything like that. I kind of shared already about, working for the woman who was pregnant, and that was one thing I did to prepare. The other thing I did was get a degree. You don't have to have a degree. I think all you need is a GED or a high school diploma. But I went ahead and went to college. I got a degree in human resource development with an emphasis in training. My dream job that I wanted was to be a trainer, but being a peer sports specialist was a great job to begin with. What I really appreciated being on the job is that your diagnosis or your symptoms you as a person are supported as a person, as an employee, and not as your diagnosis. You're seen as an employee and an important colleague to the people on the rest of the team. And so going to school for me helped me prepare. It helped me. I had poor hygiene when I was first diagnosed, and going to school helped me work on my hygiene and take my medications as prescribed to be a good student. So it's not necessary you get a college degree to become a peer sports specialist, but doing anything productive like that helps you be ready to be a peer. And the main thing that we have found is very important is that right now, before you interview to be a peer sports specialist, you work on that recovery and you work on your self-care. Self-care is very important. And once you get in the job as a peer sports specialist, you're going to have to make sure you keep your self-care up. Because if you don't keep your self-care up, you won't be any good to the people you're working with. And so it's can be stressful on the job, but it's also very rewarding because you're giving back to the system that helped you, and you're giving back to people like you were given help with.
Sherry,
So,
Sherry, can I
yes,
share something? Something that I always appreciated about you, Sherry, as you were wanting to become a peer and preparing to become a peer, is that you were very involved in your person-centered planning process. So if individuals have not been involved in their plan of service, developing their plan of service through the person-centered planning process, that is a great opportunity to really kind of take control of the services that you want and what you want to get out of those, and be very active in that process. That's one of the things, Sherry, that you did very well. And in fact, you did it so well that you ended up teaching it to other people. But if you're not involved and actively involved in your person-centered plan process, I really encourage folks to do that. That's another way to that you did to help yourself become a peer, because you really understood what you needed, how you could get it, how that gets into a plan.
and in moving forward, if you come to moving forward, I teach you about person-centered planning there and in the Living Hope series. So it's good if you don't know all your rights in the person-centered planning process. You can either ask your case manager, or you can just come to moving forward and hear the training, and also go to the training in the Living Hope series. This is a slide. If there are people that want Vicki to send you the PowerPoint that we've been using today with the information on it, she will do that. You got to make sure she has your email address. So if you didn't get registered on the website and you got a link from me or something, you're going to need to make sure we have your email address so we can email you this PowerPoint. And this particular slide shares the different providers that you can work at, Community Housing Network. Again, you don't need to be certified as a peer to work there, but they have good jobs and you work as a peer. CNS Healthcare, Easter Seals and Training and Treatment, all three of them will send you to certification training with the state. And then Community Mental Health Association of Michigan may post jobs for people in different counties of peer sports specialist positions. So if you would like this, maybe I don't mind if you put it in the chat, your email address, so we can send you this PowerPoint. So are there any questions? We find in moving forward, people have a lot of questions for the peer panels that we have. So if you don't think of questions today and you're going to come to moving forward, it's going to be a virtual training. You have to sign up on the website. And then you'll get a link from me a couple of days before moving forward saying how to get in the training and participate virtually. Like I said, it's not mandatory, but like Jordy said, it's very, very helpful.
It sure is. Sure is.
And you really get to know each other in the class and start networking right away.
So any questions about this presentation or thoughts, comments that you have about becoming a peer? Any questions, comments, or thoughts?
So we got Kathy who would like to share.
Just wondering, is the moving forward the one that you talked about in October?
Yes,
And that's, do you know the hours on that yet?
yes, it's 9 to 12:30.
9 to 12:30. Okay. Because I can
And it
be there. And
starts
it's
on
virtual,
October
right?
7th and it goes for 5 weeks in a row at the same
Okay.
time.
All right. That's awesome. Thank you.
And did we show how they can get to the website? Was that
Oh.
on one of
Yes.
the slides?
Yes, it
Okay.
is.
Okay.
Can you repeat how to get to the website? I didn't catch
Yeah.
that then.
I'll go back.
Okay.
I think it was that last one.
Here's can you see moving forward?
Yes.
Yep. So
So
you go to our
Oakland-
website, oaklandchm.org.
Okay. I got that down. Thanks.
Yep, good.
And you can also sign up for Speechcraft, which will be in person.
Yeah,
Um,
it's all on our website.
yeah.
Any other questions or comments about the training?
I thought that was an excellent training.
Thank you, Kelly. If you have any additional questions or comments, you can always contact Sherry or I. We're happy to chat with you, give you information. I will send out a copy of the PowerPoint to everyone that attended today's session. I believe there was one person I did not have their email, and I think that was Eric. Eric, if you could be sure to put your email in the chat, that would be great.
How do we get a hold of Vicky?
Can you see the? Can you
Oh,
see? Yep,
I'll just take
I'm
a
on there.
snap.
There-
Okay.
There's my
Thank you.
email as well as my phone number.
All right. Awesome. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments?
Before I didn't get a chance to get your information because it was taken off. All I got was 248-858. Miss Vicky.
One,
Could you put
two,
that up,
three.
please?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Give me a quick second here.
Sutter.
Let me go back. Hang on.
Mhm.
Give me a minute to get my cursor to do what I want it to do.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 5.
Mhm.
Okay.
Any other
Any-
comment? Go ahead, Sherry.
D-
Sorry.
I was just gonna say to you guys that I'm one of the trainers in Moving Forward. So if you have any questions before you come to Moving Forward, give me a call or
Mhm.
email me. I'll be one of the trainers at that
Yep.
Moving Forward.
Yeah, Sherry's probably the best person to contact. But I'm available if need be. It's just that she does all the trainings and she's very versed on the topic. I am as well. But Sherry is a certified peer. I am not. So she can give you a little bit more of that perspective of being a certified peer support specialist.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Most welcome. All right. Anything else for us? Sherry, any parting words you want to give?
I just want to say that I'm proud of you guys for taking the first step in learning about becoming a peer sports specialist. It's a very rewarding job. It's very helpful to you and those you work with. So I just want to say I'm proud of you for coming and taking the first step, and I look forward to seeing you and moving forward if possible. So thank you for coming, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jordy,
Take
for
care.
presenting today, and thank you, Kelly, for supporting and sharing your knowledge as well.
Thank you.